You guys can hear me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's honestly the problem.
Okay.
Wow. Done did him dirty.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to the first episode of the Medical Room Podcast, name pending. I'm here joined today with recent Season 7 player and current production member Timmy.
Hello.
The always kind Season 3, Season 6 player and production member Infernox.
Hello.
Sooner,
Hello.
myself, Alikers35, and last but not least, Jerry.
Hey, what's up?
So you're probably wondering what this podcast could possibly be about. Basically, hopefully every week or so, I'll roundtable a discussion with myself and a couple of my friends that we've made along the way. We'll be rotating who's in and out just so that we get a different mix of people and just talk about a specific topic. It could be from the community, our thoughts on Survivor, or just what we do in our free time. Really, I think it would be great if we could have you guys be the driving force in what topics you want us to talk about. Because currently, we're really open to any suggestions. We have a couple episodes planned in the future, but it'd be great to get some of your guys' input. I thought to kick off the podcast, it'd be really nice if we could maybe do something that you guys might want to hear about, which are a couple casting tips that maybe we've picked up along the way since we've done 7 of these seasons, and they might be worth sharing if you're still holding off on trying to apply for Season 7 Plus and you want to figure out ways to, I guess, have your application stand out and be better. We might get a little nitpicky with certain tips that we might give, but please know this is out of good intentions to better help your application and to just be overall constructive about it. So I'm actually going to go around the room, or I guess the round table, if you will, and everyone just say something that you guys would like to see in an application that would make you say, I like this application. Tim, you start first.
Alright. We've had, because this is recorded during just after the application started, came out yesterday for Season 7 Plus. And we've read through most of them. We are actually pretty far in. We've had a lot of choices, been good ones, bad ones, but an overall arc that I'm missing for a lot, or the majority of the applications so far, is a true sense of passion and showing of willingness for people to get in. It feels like there's no true self-story put into it, and that's honestly what I'm missing.
So you'd be happy if you, I guess, saw a story conveyed in the application.
Show me the drive to, you want this. Why? Why should I care about you?
So you're saying more of passion.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. All right, Infernox, what's something that would make you really happy to see in an application?
I'm happy when I see responses and answers that are multifaceted. So when you're answering the question, but you're kind of going above and beyond and kind of combining multiple aspects of your personality to answer the question and not just being defined by what you're being asked. I kind of like it when I can see clever responses and someone getting another aspect of their personality or another point of view that they're trying to get across about how they would play or how they are or what their motivations are. And sometimes if I see an answer that's just focused solely on answering the question and that's it and there's not much to build on that, sometimes it's harder to kind of figure out the full aspect of of what somebody's like in their application.
Okay. Sooner, what would make you happy to see in an application?
Okay, so in an application and interview, I particularly enjoy reasonably controversial applications. People who are outspoken or at least have some opinions that might not be the most popular. It definitely catches our eyes, and I believe that in this show's past, the most controversial players are those like Korkager, like Sinwar, like Brady, for instance. Fuck.
What the hell?
Who else is controversial?
Great example.
so like specifically in this show's past, I believe that the most successful players are those that are controversial, and not whenever I say successful, I mean in terms of camera and personality. I don't believe, or I truly believe that the more outspoken you are, the more opinionated you are, and the more willing to stand out you are, the more you appease the camera and appease our needs as production on Chris's seasons. So, for instance, like Corkager, love him or hate him, I believe that he's so outspoken and so loud that he stood out, and that's the reason why he's so out there and so appreciated in this whole series.
All right. So for me, what makes me happy in an application is, and I guess I kind of say this a little bit in some of the audition announcement videos, the audition announcement videos, is I want to see something that I haven't seen before, because it's a lot of people kind of fall into this, like, I guess, trap that they don't really explain how they're different from other people, and so because they don't really stand out, they end up blending together, and then typically I kind of forget that some of those applications were written in the first place. So just I want to see something new that hasn't been really done in the first 7 seasons I've been doing this whole shebang. Meeting new people through the casting process really is one of the most fun parts about producing another season. Jerry, what makes you happy in an application?
So I like the uniqueness because every person's different in their own way. Like, some people are more quiet, some people are, like Sooner was talking about, loud. I just like, it sounds generic, but like I just like learning about who the person that's applying is, like who's that face behind the keyboard, because we don't have that face-to-face interaction in this type of environment. So like, I just think there's always this perception that is, you have to, if I'm a good player, if I've won so and so's game, like in the, that's awesome, but we genuinely don't care. At least I don't care. Like, if you won so and so's or if you did well, and it's like, that's awesome. I'm happy for you, but we're not trying to put together a season full of people all game. We're looking for unique people. Like, we like finding people who may be quiet. We like finding people who are very outspoken. We like finding people who are very energetic, who are very creative. If you look at the seasons, it's never a season full of, how many people have played, like 12, 14, 15, 16, however many that are the exact same. So if you are that type of person, own that, being that person, and tell us why that makes you different, because I've noticed in reading some of them so far, everyone's a gamer, and that's fine. I'm a gamer too. But if you play this, how does playing, like, say, like Skywars a lot, how does that define who you are compared to someone just saying, oh yeah, I play this for fun? It just that, there's a big difference in like talking about it and how it helps, if that makes any sense.
I think that's going to lead us into some of the actual tips, I guess, because like Tim had mentioned before, you guys have been sending in your applications, which, thank you. Didn't expect you guys to really blow past my expectations, considering that, this is a season 7 plus sort of dealio that I'm throwing at you guys. It's an unofficial season. No one really knows what we're going for here. And you guys, within the first 24 hours, I kid you not, sent in 100 applications. Over 100 applications within the first day. So, thank you guys. But what we're also noticing is, because you guys put them in pretty fast, we are reading, I've personally read through, I think, at least 30 of them now. And we're noticing, like, the same patterns and, I guess, missteps being taken in these apps. And we're going to go in with one of my first tips that I see here. Didn't think I'd have to say this, but the first one for me is use an actual email. I didn't think I'd have to say that, but no, you're not going to really know if you make it into the next round of casting, which is the interview stage, if you don't have an email, because that's how I send the mass message that says, hey, you made it on to the next round, or thank you for applying. So that's really the only way we're going to inform you. That's the easiest way for us. And if you give us an email that doesn't work, you might not even get an email, and you won't know, like, what your standing is. So anybody, I'm going to pass it off to anyone. Well, does anyone have any tips that they'd like to share, or things that they noticed?
To like continue on with things you said that should go without saying, I've noticed a trend where, for example, if we ask you about your favorite player of all time, if you haven't watched the series, that's fine. Like if you haven't watched Axel Survivor, that's fine. Like I can't ask you to go out and watch 10 seasons and choose your favorite player. But if you have and then decide to answer, I don't have. For example, we ask you, I think it's the fourth question in the entire interview, which MC Survivor player are you most like, and you decide to say nobody because I'm going to be myself. I don't even want to tell you how many people have already answered that. It's just a question we've asked. So if we ask you something, if you legitimately don't have an answer, fine, but never answer with no, I don't have one.
If I can tack on to that, another thing that I think is important is not to be repetitive in saying the same things over and over again. You know, if you're focused on one thing or one aspect of your life and you keep saying either, for example, about your games and Minecraft and things like that, or you focus on only one thing that you do, then like Chris said, it might not make you as memorable as somebody else because you're, only saying something over and over again.
Yeah, I like that. And it's kind of connected to one of my points. There's like a certain sweet spot that comes with like writing these applications because some of the applications, they kind of are either too short or too long. It's really hard to tell what the right length is. All I know is if I like an application, I'll just keep on reading it because you've got my attention. I'm focused on you now because I can keep reading 3 to 4 sentences in this one answer. And then you like give like that sort of chunk of like 3 to 4 sentences that are like really well thought out and well written, like good grammar, correct spelling. It's really silly that like I have to say grammar and spelling do matter because it shows that like you took the time to like make sure you didn't make that many mistakes and you just like rush it just to be like the first person to throw in an application. No matter how long your application is, we want you to like convey that you have passion for something in whether it be a few sentences or maybe a paragraph or so in like some of your answers.
If I could piggyback off of that, like if you like to play games, like tell us about how playing that helps you, like why, like tell us why. Don't just say, oh, I play Minecraft all the time. That's awesome, but that doesn't tell us anything. It's like, oh, you play one game that everyone that applies also plays. So, just because not everyone's out and about, obviously with Corona you can't, but like if there's certain things that you do or you like, if you like to draw, tell us about how this impacts you and shows us who you are. If you like to, if you write stories in your free time, talk about that. Just like little things can mean a lot to show us who you are individually.
Yeah, and then also just how you are. I think a lot of people forget because it doesn't seem like it often, but we're not as quite connected to the community as some of us like to be. Some of us are more, some of us are less on the production team, but we still see and hear everything most people do in this community.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately. And while it's not fair for us to go off of any prejudged notions, we can't ignore them either. So the way you act in chats, the things you say, like just things you do, the way you come off, it does affect how we think of you and what you say, especially in Chris's general chat. Like I see people saying things sometimes where I'm like, you realize you apply for the show and then you go out and do things like that. There's consequences to the things you say, and I think a lot of people tend to forget that.
Yeah, I will say that it's kind of funny because one of my tips would be to like not get involved in community drama / trouble because this community likes to talk for some reason and it'll always get back to us because people just don't know how to not gossip. It's just a thing because we're a reality game show community and so everyone loves the quote unquote tea and so the tea gets passed around.
If you have another point to that, there is like not to say that everything's bad. Like just said, there's certain really good applications, and there's still good things about even the applications we found as lackluster. Doesn't mean you're not going to be considered. Like just because we're making this video doesn't mean that almost everything we've seen is bad, because most of it, what we've seen, we do appreciate it.
Hmm.
Everyone appreciates it.
I've seen some. I'm not all the way down to applications and whatnot, but I've seen some pretty good answers and very thoughtful answers, and there's definitely some very good, well thought out sentences and effort put into the applications. And it, just like Chris said, over 100 applications, so there's a lot of passion and like a lot of excitement for applying, and that's definitely shining through when I'm reading a lot of these applications.
I have something to add on to that. So, yeah, the applications that we have so far are pretty great. Like whenever we give these tips, like we're not trying to say, oh yeah, the applications that we have so far are bad by any means. They're great. But one of the things that I've seen on this season and in seasons past is that people particularly play themselves off as something else that they're not. So, for instance, in applications, I've seen it numerous times where people say, "Oh, I'm a villain. I'm a outspoken person. I'll say whatever I want." And whenever it comes down to the season, they're not that way. So, I guess this tip mainly pertains to those kinds of people. Stick to your gun. Say if you're gonna say you're a person in your application, stick to it, because I believe that you should always try to be yourself, try to be your this person that you want to be on camera, and just stick to it, because we've seen it time and time again where people will say, "Hey, I'm this," but then turn around and do something else, and it's a little bit disheartening from a production standpoint.
Yeah, and that's actually an interesting point, just because, you know, you hear a lot of these tips, even in like the real show, when they tell you, oh, a casting tip is to be yourself. But like some people are a bit of a more exaggerated version of themselves to get through casting because, you know, there's like a certain mold. It's honestly a really fine line, kind of like a gray area that you're walking around of being yourself, but also being entertaining enough to like, you know, be a part of a show. Because it is weird. Like, yes, Minecraft Survivor is a game, but at the same time, we also are thinking about how this is a show. We want to make sure everyone who's watching is going to be invested and interested in the characters, and maybe not characters, but like you guys are players, the players of the show.
You know, people root for certain types of people, right? When they're watching, you know, that's fun. It's fun to have people that you like and maybe people that you're not a fan of, but like, what makes you rootable? You know what I mean? Like, if that makes any sense, like what makes people want to root for you? And that's why we go try to look at uniqueness in people, players, and try to get a very diverse group from people that aren't in the community to a handful that are.
Kind of give everybody a chance to connect with
Yeah.
a certain person.
Right.
I
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. It kind of is unrelated to that, but I was thinking about this. One of the big tips that I would give to anyone applying for this show is, as a player, don't be afraid to do or say things that put you out there. I know I touched upon this earlier, and I said, hey, you should be more outspoken, more opinionated. That's what I like to see. But I think in a general sense, I think we can all agree that the more entertaining of a player you are, and the more outlandish or I guess I don't know what the word is.
So you want to see like risk takers, almost in a
risk
sense.
takers. Yeah. Like, that's generally speaking, that's really good for survivors, because if you're a risk taker, you're going to be the person who could either make a really big move or consequently one of the most stupid moves. And either way, that's really good TV, and you should own it. Either way you go. I think all of us can say that whenever we play game shows, we've either had a really smart move or we had a really dumb move. Everyone's done that. And in my opinion, those are the highlights of what makes a good season good. So just keep that in mind.
I think entertainment value is super undervalued in a way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you think back in your favorite players, like if anyone's watching, you know, what makes all those classic players them? What makes Coach, you know, the Dragon Slayer? What makes Sandra the Queen? You know, it isn't the 10 idols they play or like how good they are, like certain something. It's their inner personality that comes out, that shines through the show. You know, what makes them that like those characters? That's what I always try and think about when I write my applications. Like, what makes me me, and what makes the host believe that I am actually that person.
One of the other points that I wanted to make was show that you're mature. And this is kind of connects back to like how we never really set a hard limit on the age. It's just as long as like you're mature in front of the camera, that means you have to also show that you're somewhat mature in your application.
I was going to say, it's not necessarily an age thing, because I think we've seen many younger people who seem very mature in their applications, and we've seen older people who may not be as mature. And it's not just an age thing. I think, though, being mature sets you apart in your application, because that shows that you're putting effort and taking the time. And I think seeing that gives us like a sense of you're really focused on giving this a shot, and that's something that I think you'd want to see.
Mm-hmm.
Same sense where it's also like if you do say you're mature, I don't know if I'm allowed to piggyback off this.
You can go.
But no, just saying that in general, like I played last season and we had the most I think it's the oldest cast in your series history.
Yes, it was. Correct. Yeah.
It didn't shine true on the day itself. I'm just going to say it very bluntly. I'm not going to excuse myself from being immune from this, but if you do end up getting on, interrupting the host and not listening and not following the rules doesn't make you a funny character or someone popular. It makes you a prick. Very bluntly said.
Another point is you're probably noticing that there are a lot of questions about your passions, your hobbies. I think there's like at least 3 or 4 of them, really. And actually, at the top of this section of the application, it's titled Your Story. It says Survivor is about telling a story. Share us yours in as much detail as you can. Back to what I was saying about this gray area of not writing enough or writing too much. I would rather you write a lot and maybe too much, because it gives us a lot to work with to like figure out who you are as a person. I mean, it's kind of a pitfall if you do write too much, because I might like zone out after reading 5 sentences and there's like maybe another 3 paragraphs to go. Try to give as much detail to convey whatever you need to say without going too crazy.
You can also look at it this way, where it's a lot of you have been waiting, or at least when I applied for season 7, like you have been waiting for a while for this stuff to come back out. Like it's obvious with the applications we got, and like people want to play this. We and you both know equally as much about when the next season is going to happen. So this is your one shot. When you do write your application, then you have to realize then, if you mess up this one, you never know when the next one's coming. So the more passion that yourself you put into it, the higher chance you'll get, because you don't know when the next one's coming.
A tip that I have when I'm looking at applications is one of the things I like to do when I'm answering a question is kind of looking at the hows and the whys of that question. Like, why am I answering the question this way? So explaining fully, if I answer a question, why did I answer it this way? What was my motivation for answering it? How silly it sounds. But then if you think that way, I think you get more thought into your answers, and naturally, I think it makes it easier to write fully what you feel, what you're thinking, and get it a better, more thoughtful answer on paper.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a really, really good point, to be honest. Just because, like, the explaining of it, as he said, like the hows, like the whys explaining the reasoning, all that. At least that's how I interpret that. But I think the same way whenever I'm reading applications.
Another point I had was just, seriously, it's okay to be yourself. As cliche as it is, because like try to think about all the other casts that like we've put together in the past. They're pretty different. Like when you look at one season's cast, most of those people are different in their own ways, and hopefully are relatable to you in some way. And not all of them are Minecraft like challenge beasts. Most of them don't win a community game show every other weekend, so it doesn't matter if you're like good or bad at the game. For me personally,
what do you mean I'm incredible at Minecraft?
Oh,
shut your freaking mouth.
Can't beat Jerry. Never lost.
Wait, Jerry, you won a competition? Genuinely
Right.
speaking, did you actually?
Yeah.
Which one?
Final 6 of season 2.
Oh,
I won 1.
I mean, how many
sorry.
have you won?
Yeah, get wrecked.
How many have I won? 2.
Yeah. Oh, seems we're all tied up. Infernox, how many have you won?
0.
Oh shit!
Oh!
You don't have to be, you don't have to be good at Minecraft to, have a
Hey.
shot.
Yeah.
Hey, last I checked, Infernox still won. So
Yeah, I really have nothing to say at this table, quite frankly. I'm the only one who hasn't
Oh.
won, so.
Oh no.
I won Andrew's big brother. Does that count?
No,
Yeah,
absolutely
just
No.
I won 2 HOHs.
Listen, I say yes just
Back
so
to
we can
back.
exile Tim from the group.
All right, see you.
you
Tim.
played 7 seasons, Chris, of your own series, and you haven't won a single time. Shut up.
What? So I'm gonna be the type to rig it for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I really have won nothing then, huh? Okay.
Don't say that.
I've almost like actually hit most of my points.
Really?
Yeah, if you guys wanna, if you guys have things written down that we haven't touched on, go for it.
I think something like that just happened. Like, we're here, like me, like production. I mean, I can't speak for everyone, but for myself, like, we are online. We're still like we're human. Feel free to ask anything. Like, if you ever have a question, especially like in the chat, usually people answering just Chris, like just. But if you ever have any questions about like casting or the seasons themselves, just having that general info can help you. And we're all here. We're not this inhuman. We're not like above anyone. Like we're always down to talk, as far as I know.
Yeah, I am.
Mhm.
Someone once told me that I was on Do Not Disturb, and that was like intimidating to message someone. But it's simply because I'm in so many chats. I don't want my computer to sit there and ping all day.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm on D&D for that reason. So I
Yeah,
get
it's
that.
Yeah,
too
but you, I
much.
get that. But
Yeah,
with just us players, like before season 7, I was no different than anyone else, and I'm still no different than anyone else.
that's how I
The only
feel.
difference is I played in the Minecraft game show.
Yeah,
I'm not
that's true.
inapproachable.
That's how I feel. It's like
Yeah, like if you genuinely want help on your application, just ask us. Say, hey,
Yeah.
like what? Like ask us in that time and day. Just say, hey, would it be okay to say this? Or like, we won't be able to say concrete answers, of course, because we don't want to give.
It's kind of like a math test, right? When you ask the professor or your teacher, like, "Hey, do I add this with this and get the answer? Like, do I add 32 plus 32 together?" They might tell you yes, but if you ask them, "Is 32 plus 32 64?" They're not going to say yes. 32 plus 32 is 60.
Yeah, it's like we're not going to tell you how to write it, but we're gonna give you tips on if what you said is pleasing.
I think Chris touched on this before, but grammar, especially with some of the earlier interviews, just don't rush it. It still has to be like readable, and sometimes it isn't, even though the substance is good, but that does make it harder to read.
Yeah, and to add on to that, like just because you're okay, so I mean, generally speaking, you have a few weeks to fill out your application, do your interviews, all that stuff, right?
This one's a bit quicker, though.
Okay, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
either way, whether or not you're filling out an application at the tail end of the application process of right before the deadline closes or from the very beginning, we just want to preface that we take your application seriously, regardless of whenever it is actually filled
You
out.
read all of it.
I'm gonna
read
read
all
them
of it.
all. I've read every application excluding 6 since season 3, so that's not gonna change.
Like, I generally think that it's you could still be a great person and great applicant even if you're like the last person to apply. So
Yeah,
we
that's true.
don't be discouraged to apply if you are
That's why my tip with that is just do it if like you have any like thought in your mind, just so that you don't regret it like later on if you're like, what if I did apply? Just do it.
I do actually remember a story from a past season of casting. One of the within like I think they were closing like in like 2 or 3 hours, and we received an application. I believe this was during the 4 and 5 season cycle. They were one of the last people to apply, and it was a very good app, but it was towards the end. And I know I saw some people say, "Oh, I just submitted," towards the end. Hopefully, they still read it. And that it wasn't the same person, but they actually got on and did very, very well during their season. So just because you're towards the end, that doesn't mean we're not going to pay attention. Take your time. Just make sure, don't regret anything you said, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I I mean, I think you had this written down, but I don't know if you like. Because I'll say it because it's not fun to say.
What, bro?
Because I'm gonna be that guy again. We had no. I'm just not gonna say how many. Cut that out. But an application by someone who's close to one of us. Just because you're either Chris's or Jerry's or Infernox's or mine or Suna's friend, that doesn't mean anything when applying. If that doesn't sound too harsh.
Ask any of these guys how much like it doesn't matter to me if you're friends with me. Unfortunately.
I mean, I look at JT. It took him 5 seasons.
Yeah.
to be
Okay,
friends with
that's a lie, but like
JT.
being friends with him. But
I know. Sorry.
No, seriously. I respect people who put a lot of effort into their applications. So if you think, oh, I'm like one of Chris's like friends, like I got to talk to him a couple times and stuff like that. I'm sure he would just stick me on there because we're good. Buddy, there's like 100 other
chance.
people that are applying and like putting a lot of effort. So I need to be fair. And for me, it's a matter of respecting those people who put a lot of effort into their applications.
You just said like there's 100 applications. It's not like we don't have enough choice. It sounds very harsh.
That's 100 apps a day in. Like we're
Yeah.
over halfway to breaking last season's record in a day. That's crazy.
Incredible, by the way. Once again, like don't think we're just mad. Like it's actually incredible how many apps we've gotten.
So, okay, so like one of the last few points I wanted to bring up was it's actually very helpful because I don't know if you guys have caught on at this point, but like I'm a sucker for, I guess, storytelling, right? Because I have to do that when I edit. So if you can somehow have a theme, like a common theme, a common thread throughout your app so that we have an idea of like what do you really do outside, maybe before this whole Corona thing happened, like what was something that you did outside of just Minecraft and Survivor that really shaped you as a person? That's a theme.
Have fun with it.
Dude, I was gonna you mother.
Were you gonna say that?
Yep.
Even though we like I said, there's over 100 applications, and you might be nervous or you're worried about your answers, and like we said, ask us questions. We'd be happy to help with what we can, but have fun with it. And I think when you're writing it and you have that mentality, it's easier to think of things to say, and having just an optimistic outlook on it, I think is something that shines through, and I like seeing that.
On that same vein, like just having fun with it. You said being worried about what you answer. You should never be worried about being yourself.
Mm-hmm.
If you're worried about being yourself, and that's something, that's not good because being yourself is what you should do on a daily basis, and that's what we want you to express. And you should never be worried to do that because what are we gonna do? Laugh at you? Absolutely not. Like you're exposing yourself to us to read your application, and that's what we want. We don't want you to pretend to be someone you're not because then we're going to pick up on that. We're not stupid in that sense.
And again, like I respect and am very grateful for all 100 plus of you who have applied so far because it just to me shows that people still care about this series after 2.5 years of, is it 2.5 or is it, I think we're going to 3 years now of just doing this thing and just still being watched by people that just care. So I think this is actually a good place to wrap it up. Does anybody have any final words before we close this podcast out?
We read everything. We appreciate everything. Even if we say things like this, we do still appreciate it. So put yourself out there. Every time you try is a step closer, even if you don't get on.
And again, yeah, it's kind of tough because there's only like 12 to like 16ish spots to get on a season. So just try and see what happens. That's all I can really say.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of you guys want to get on, but yeah, it's a small hole to clear. And maybe you could apply these sort of tips to like other applications for other games or shows that you might want to appear on the future.
We want to see everyone do as well as they can. We don't want anyone to regret not adding something that they wanted to, or not saying something that they that they wanted to say but were too afraid to say it. We want everyone to be themselves. We want everyone to have their best chance when applying.
And if you are on the fence and you aren't sure if you want to apply or you're just nervous, apply anyway. I mean, it doesn't hurt, you know. You never know what might happen.
You don't know when the next time is going to be, so don't want to make sure. Don't want to have. Though you don't want to sit there in the week and be like, "Damn, I should have applied," when you could have applied.
Alrighty. If you made it this far, thank you so much for listening to our first episode / pilot episode of the Medical Room podcast. Let us know. Leave a comment down below or just message me if there are any sort of topics you'd like us to cover here on the Medical Room. We're going to be switching in and out the different people here at our roundtable, and we'll be talking about different experiences, whether they be community related or just things that we've dealt with in our lives. Literally anything. Anything you want us to talk about, we're here for it. Until next time, I'm Elite Chris 35, here from the Medical Room, signing out.
Bye.
Soon as gonna fucking he's frying.